You probably already know the pentatonic scale. You've probably heard of the CAGED system. What you might not know is that when you combine these two things together into one system, they provide a framework for understanding the fretboard that's far more impactful than either of the systems can provide by themselves. Welcome back to the channel. Today we will superimpose the pentatonic scale and the CAGED system together. Now, CAGED, pentatonic, they're different, but they're related. Oftentimes as guitar players, when we get a new piece of information, it can seem distinctly different and separate from the other things we've learned, when oftentimes this is not the case, and today that's especially true. I'm going to briefly explain the CAGED system. What is that system? Why do we care? Then I'm going to briefly explain the pentatonic scale as well, and then we're going to zoom in. I'm going to show you how to combine these things into one solid structure that provides a window into understanding the fretboard that's extremely valuable. You're watching this video because you're looking for insight into how the guitar works. Oftentimes on this journey we can get frustrated, and that frustration is usually tied to a disconnect in understanding how music works and how the guitar is designed. I can help you figure this out. I do it all the time with guitar players, and I do it in my online guitar academy called The Studio. I designed The Studio to provide guitar players with the experience that I had myself as a guitarist in music school for folks who either couldn't afford or didn't have time to enroll in a formal music education program. In The Studio, I curate an ongoing library of weekly studies. I teach live deep dive courses. I offer Q&A sessions, and I even facilitate in-person workshops. All of this and much more is available in The Studio. You can access The Studio through my Patreon page, and right now there's a 7-day free trial. You have nothing to lose. You can just go in, take a look at the whole thing, see if it fits. An online guitar academy might not be for everybody, but if you're ready to put in some work and you're really ready to understand this instrument, The Studio might be the place for you. If you do decide to study with me, I look forward to working with you. Okay, so let's review these two structures. The CAGED system is basically a way of taking the open chord shapes, putting them together as a template for mapping major chords across the entire fretboard. The pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale that sounds really good, it's easy to play, and it's extremely flexible to use. As I mentioned before, these two systems are highly related, and in fact, they use largely the same notes. So let's zoom in. I'm going to show you a way to connect each one of the CAGED-shaped chords using the pentatonic scale as the glue. So we're mixing the CAGED system and the pentatonic scale together. Again, the CAGED system simply takes the open chords C, A, G, E, and D and stitches them together in a template to map a major chord across the entire fretboard. I'll demonstrate that real quickly. So here's our C chord. If I take my A chord and I move it up until it becomes a C, I'll have to turn that into a bar chord. A, B, C. Here's my A-shaped C chord. If I did the same thing with G, which is the next one in the line, I'd have to bar it so I can move it up. Here's G, A, B, C. There's my C, G-shaped chord. Same thing with my E chord. E, F, G, A, B, C. Here's my E-shaped C chord. And then finally my D chord. I have to refinger this to bar it. D, E, F, G, A, B, C. There's my C, D-shaped chord. So we've got C here. It's my C shape, A shape. Here's my G shape, E shape, and finally my D shape. So those are all the C chords, again, put through this CAGED system, right? Now it's a lot to memorize. You have to find the roots, which is not a problem, and I highly recommend it. But what I want to show you now is that using the pentatonic scale for whatever chord you're using, we're going to use C as our example here, can help you stitch these positions together with a little bit more detail. So first thing I want to show you is the C chord has the following notes in it: C, E, and G. No matter how you voice it, if you voice it like a C shape, an A shape, a G shape, an E shape, or a D shape, it always and only has C's, E's, and G's in it. The C major pentatonic scale has C, D, E, G, A, and then we're done, we're back to C. So as you can see, 3 of those notes are already in the C chord. The only notes that are different are that D note and that A note. And we're going to use those 2 notes to stitch each one of these cage shapes together. Let me show you how it works. Here's our C chord, right? That's our first stop on the CAGED system. And our C major pentatonic scale fits right inside the chord. Right? If I take those same notes, those C pentatonic notes, and I play them as a scale starting on that same note, but with my middle finger, right? It changes the shape a little bit, right? I'm moving from that open position to what I would call 3rd position here. That outlines your A-shaped C chord. Right? Now I'm going to take that same C major pentatonic scale, start it on my index finger here, play it like this, and that sets me up for my G shape. Now my root is on the E string here. I'm going to do the same thing and play it with my middle finger. That sets me up for my E shape. If I start on that same root and I use my index finger now, that sets me up for my D shape. And now if I do it one more time, same scale, I'm back to my C shape. So let me just review this. Here's our C chord, right? We're going to follow that CAGED system. Now I simply switch fingers that I start on, play the major scale, that C major pentatonic scale. That outlines my A shape. Switch to my index finger to start the scale. That outlines my G shape. Same scale starting on my middle finger again. That outlines my E shape. Same scale starting on my index finger now. That sets me up to play my D shape. And if I do it one last time, it takes me back to the C shape. So while learning all these chords isn't necessarily that hard, and it's highly recommended, you can tie them together with the pentatonic scale and thereby fill in those gaps. With that major pentatonic scale, because they're basically using the same information, and you're just using those 2 notes inside the scale that are not in the chord to help tie everything together. Understanding the fretboard can be a little daunting without context. The CAGED system provides a great starting point, and overlaying the pentatonic scale, as we saw, connects those dots even further. These 2 systems together really present a solid framework for understanding the fretboard. Tabs for this lesson, which arguably are going to be pretty important, are available on my Patreon page. Head on over there if you want to grab them. You can also gain access to the studio there as well. I strongly recommend going through this lesson just like I did for the key of C. And then once you get comfortable with that, move it around all 12 keys. You can use the circle of fifths for this, for example. Do it all in C, and then repeat it all for G, then repeat it all for D, A, E, B, etc. By the time you get through all 12 keys doing this, you'll see the fretboard in a completely different way, I promise. I hope you found this lesson beneficial, and I think if you really commit to it, it'll get you really good results. As always, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.